Hello again. I hear the American Edward Snowdon, you know, the NSA, the National Security Advisor turned spill the beans man, is going to be giving the alternative message to the Queen's speech today. Well, I thought I'd do a message of my own, since I'm actually English and he's American. And I mention English because normally I'd have the Union Jack behind me here, but as you know, the Scottish are going to be having a referendum on whether or not to stay in the Union. So whether or not we'll be flying the Union Jack by the middle of next year remains to be seen. But that's not what I want to talk about today. No doubt I'm not the only one this Christmas to receive one of these. Well, to the uninitiated and those who don't drive cars, I'm sure you know anyway, this is a parking charge notice known as a PCN, which I inadvertently obtained when I was at the Lincoln Christmas market this year. Now, those who don't know, the market runs over about 4 days, and this year it was from December the 5th through to the 8th. So I thought, I went up the day before to drop off some stuff, but it so happened that I have more things to take up there. Now I hear you saying, well, silly fool, why take your car up there when you know there's parking restrictions all over the place? And I agree with you. Recently I've been trying to use my bike a lot more because I live in Lincoln, so you get easier to get around sometimes on your bicycle than it is in a car, particularly with the mad rail barriers we've got in the middle of town. Anyway, we won't go into that because I'm talking about parking charge notices. So I'm taking some stuff up because, if I'm honest, I was ill or not well, so normally I'd lug a lot of stuff and carry a lot of things, but I thought, well, I've got to minimise the load. I'll use the car, and I knew parking was going to be a problem. So I parked in a restricting zone. They sent this through with the material. I only got this because I appealed. Now, I've had 1 or 2 parking charge notices before this year, or earlier in this year is what I'm trying to say, and I've not appealed those, but I appealed this one, and I'm going to tell you why, and I want to know what you think as to whether or not the judgment they came to was fair or not, or whether, you know, it's a fair cop. So I parked in a restricted area, but I put my hazard lights on because I reckoned, oh, well, I can get back in 6-7 minutes, and in fact I did. But in that period of time, I received this. Now, I would have thought to myself, okay, I'm in a place where I shouldn't be, fair enough. But I thought they gave you about 5 minutes grace anyway, the parking wardens that is, and I'd be able to get back and out of the way, and I was very mindful not to be in a position where I'd block anyone. But the other mitigating factor, I think, that should have been taken into consideration, but when I read you the letter that I got back from them, was summarily dismissed, was that another vehicle pulled up behind me. Now, if you look at the photo that they've sent to me, there is another vehicle behind me. So I actually took photos of that vehicle on the day because it struck me as rather funny that that vehicle was there. Before I left my car, it pulled up after I arrived. I put my hazard lights on, got out of the car, and took all my stuff around the corners of the assembly rooms to leave it in there, where I was playing for free to entertain the people that were attending the Christmas market and buying things from the stalls in there. So when I got back to my car, I actually saw the traffic wardens. I said to them, listen fellas, I've left my hazard lights on. I've not been gone 5 minutes. Well, I've probably been gone about 7 minutes. It's not fair. Anyway, they said, well, look, you know, you're not supposed to be here. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I never mentioned the other car there. He was there because it was a male driver. The other car was there. He had not received a ticket. When I drove round again, and this was 10 minutes later, that same car was there. I took a photo, and I sent that information in to the appeals panel, or whatever they might call themselves. They said, oh, you know, it was a restricted zone. I knew that. You know, you couldn't park there, and hazard lights don't mean anything, and so we're not going to, you know, there's no mitigating circumstances. But they also said, as for With regards to the other vehicles, we have no details and therefore cannot comment. Well, they only didn't have any details because they didn't take the details. The car was clearly there, and of course they do have the details now because I sent them a photograph which has the registration on. Now, let's be clear. I don't know who the owner of that other vehicle is. I'm not saying that they should give a charge notice to the vehicle that was there, because let's face it, there was, as it says here, no waiting, no loading, no parking, no nothing, but he was there waiting, and he was still there waiting 10 minutes after I'd left, and yet he did not get a charge. So where's the equanimity? Where is the fairness? Where is the balance? Where's the judgment? If I was causing an obstruction, and I was careful to make sure that I wouldn't cause an obstruction, or very anxious not to, then I can see that, you know, the reason we have parking wardens is to make sure that traffic can move freely, that what business needs to get done, maybe there's builders in the area or whatever needs to get done, and so forth. But clearly, if a vehicle's there, you know, 2-3 times the length of time I'm there and it hasn't caused an obstruction, hasn't been moved on, and in the photograph that I sent them, there were actually police officers walking past that vehicle. So, what do you think? I think Lincoln City Council or Lincolnshire Council Parking Authority has been unfair, unjust in this case. And you can put a comment. The other thing that really rubs salt into the wound is the fact you hear on the news, as I did about 2 or 3 days ago, that the councils have made over £600 million in surpluses or profits to you and me from their parking bays and so on. So that's not from fines, but they've made an almost equivalent amount in fines as well, well over 500 million. And Lincoln is among the top councils for their parking receipts, money from parking spaces, and I dare say they'll have made a profit also from parking fines. The parking restrictions should be in place in order to benefit the community, benefit traffic flow and so on and so forth. It shouldn't be punitive and it should not be profit making. And you know, you get the distinct feeling when you get this kind of judgment coming through that it's a profit making scheme. Yeah. And then councils, I think, are under pressure to make money. In Lincolnshire I should say, they're closing down about 30 libraries. Okay, they say they're going to hand them over to voluntary agencies to run them. But we already have very reduced services in some of our libraries in Lincolnshire. We have a very good central library, but if you live out in the sticks or somewhere, or even where I am, my local area, we used to have a library, you know, the hours are minimal. And these libraries are there to serve our children, to serve the whole community, elderly people who need to be able to get out, socialise with people and so on. And so, you know, the authorities are trying to make money on one point by penalising punitive judgments against the motorists, boom, bash them on the head with a kosh and take their money. No more than highway robbery, really. And then they're also closing down essential services to the community. And then the big thing earlier this year, as you'll remember in April, was the bedroom tax, they called it, which was basically, if you're on benefits, social benefits, and there are many people who are, and many people who need them, there may be some who aren't entitled or shouldn't be entitled, but many people are entitled and should be. And yet, if they're in a property, like a 2-bedroom property, and I am, I'll admit it, but I'm not on benefits at this present time, so it doesn't affect me directly. But if you are, and you've got a spare bedroom, then your benefits are being cut, and by 14%, I believe it is, for each bedroom, and then you've got to find that extra money to pay that on top of the gas and electric rises that seem to be, you know, perennial, happen 2 or 3 times a year. The government's doing precious little about that, and you've got to find that money when food prices are going up, when wages, well, if you're not on benefits you may not be working, but many people who are on these benefits are working. They're the working poor, as we've heard about. And so all these cumulative things, plus your parking fines, let's not forget those, add up. Yeah. So I just wonder, you know, here we are celebrating Christmas. I don't keep Christmas myself. And talking about parking fines and the bedroom tax and that, some people are going to be listening to the Queen. She's got a lot of spare bedrooms, and many of them are being subsidised by the state. I wonder if she has to pay the bedroom tax. Merry Christmas.